こんにちは。Hello.
I'm Keiko and I'm not.
I'm Mark Kubumatsu.
Inorganic filters are things like zinc oxide.
But then you get a disease what they love in Russia.
Barbell Radio.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Bubble Radio. As always, this is your host, Canon, and it's actually been a while since I've done an English episode. So, hello to my English-speaking listeners. And today I have on the show the president and co-founder of The Strength Guys, which is a powerlifting coaching platform. We have Jason Tremblay. Thank you for coming onto the show today.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And also for those that have never heard of The Strength Guys, which is probably not many, can you please explain what you guys do and the service that you guys provide?
Yeah, so we're an online coaching group that started in 2011. So we've been around for a decade now. We primarily work with drug-free powerlifters, including many of the world's top powerlifters. I've trained 3 world champions in Taylor Atwood and Eli Burks, and 16 national champions through Canada, USA, Great Britain, Slovenia, and Croatia. We're a group with coaches based all over the world. So we have coaches in New Zealand with Kedrick Kwan, Singapore, Jonathan Chua, Alfred Jong and I are located in Canada. And then we have John Downing, Jacob Templer, Vanessa Gale, Arian Kamisi, all located in the USA. So we're all over the place, and our clientele is as well. That's something we take a lot of pride in. So.
Yeah. And I think it's really great that you actually hire coaches, which then actually you get to have one-on-one, like an intimate connection with the actual client instead of providing programs and, doing, just having one group and then trying to provide services there. I think it's great that you have many coaches around the world.
Yeah, it's if you're only one person and you gain any traction as a coach, pretty soon you're going to have way too many clients in your queue. So I enjoy working in teams. I love working with everyone that we have on our team. And yeah, it's great to be amongst all of them.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you've been around for a decade. So 10 years back in 2011, was there such thing as an online coaching platform?
Yeah, so back in 2011, Lane Norton was quite popular. He still is now, of course, but he kind of popularized online coaching. 2011 was an interesting time in powerlifting because that's right before the sport got really popular really fast. And on the research side of things, that's when I think the sport really started to evolve quite fast as well, with research on daily undulating periodization and volume being the driver of so many different hypertrophy and strength adaptations, and velocity-based training, like RP-based training, like it all like just kind of like started happening around that time frame. And online coaching it really started then. Like RTS started like a year before we did, or 2 years we did. Lane and Ben Escrow were at it. Renaissance periodization started around the same time. The strength athletes started a few years after we did. So that was kind of like where all the groups now began.
Very exciting times, right?
Yeah, it was for me. I was 19 when I started the Strength Guys, so I didn't know a whole lot. It's kind of very similar to your junior lifter who loves the sport and loves the planning aspect of the sport, just wants to get in there and like tell other people what to do.
I
I don't give myself any credit for that, because I think every coach needs to start somewhere.
Right.
But I give myself credit for figuring out how to do good with the clients I have later on in my career. So yeah, that's how we started, really.
So like, did you have any background on things like strength training? Were you an athlete? Were you like always just interested in the whole like programming and strength training side? Like, what was your background like?
So I played every different sport growing up. I was actually quite overweight though, and inactive outside of sports. I was 18th in the world in Madden NFL online.
Oh wow! Okay.
That was my thing growing up, and as soon as I actually had depression when I was 15, 16, and as soon as I went to the gym for the first time, it's kind of like one of those moments where I found something I loved so much that I decided to quit taking my antidepressants cold turkey, and just, like exercise was going to get me out of it. And so I did that, and then I discovered through Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine, I discovered bodybuilding, which was the first thing that really interested me. And I discovered how many different types of training programs there were in bodybuilding. And of course, I wanted to start writing out my own, and that was fascinating. So for the next 7 years, I trained myself to compete in natural bodybuilding, which I did. During my final year of coaching coaching and doing natural bodybuilding, Taylor Atwood signed up as a client. And back then he was cut by the BC Lions professional football team. He was a professional running back. So he was nobody in the powerlifting world. But he wanted me to get him ready for USA Nationals, and we won. We won.
When was that? When did he come to you for coaching?
That was in 2000. It was Denver Raw Nationals, so it's like 2013, 2014, one of those years.
Okay.
So he signed up. He actually signed up, and we competed at our first Raw Nationals before I had ever competed in powerlifting myself.
Okay.
So it was a lot at first. And then after he won, I realized that he could have won Worlds with that total, which was the same weekend. And I realized that this was really serious. And so I was like, I have to compete now. So I surrounded myself with, in the company, people who knew a lot about powerlifting, who could help guide me in the right direction, and who could also help train me so that I could compete and know what this was like. So I really got into things the backwards way. I was coaching first and then competing, which doesn't really sound right either, but it's what happened. So
yeah, very interesting. And I think it sounds like you're a very you're a curious person who's willing to challenge a lot of things, from doing NFL to, getting into bodybuilding, to getting, to starting a business, into like competing yourself and trying to figure out what coaching is like. It sounds like you're always jumping into things with a lot of curiosity and then, trying to make your way through that, which I think is really great.
Yeah, that's the way my dad was when I was growing up, and I guess I've kind of taken after him in the business aspect of things, which is trying everything. So
right. So was it the time when Taylor Atwood won nationals where you thought it was, there was a huge potential in the online coaching business? What did you what made you think oh shit, this is, there's a potential in this market of online coaching business? Because right now it's going off, right? And everybody wants to be a coach. But back then it would have taken a lot to even realize, to even start a business around online coaching online coaching?
Yeah, so I was a kinesiology undergraduate student when I started this. So I go to class during the day, I do my homework, and then I do my TSG work at night, run social media and stuff. So I had nothing better to do really, and work out. But honestly, so a guy named Matt Jansen, who coaches Mr. Olympia competitors now, but back then he was natural bodybuilding.
Okay.
He and I teamed up to really like start the coaching side of things with the strength guys. And within a few months, we had some of the best natural bodybuilders in the sport training with us.
Okay.
Including Jeff Nippert, who's very popular on YouTube.
Even in Japan.
Yeah, so within a few months, we had people like this training with us. Even back then, like they were still able to draw in a crowd of people, even though Jeff only had like 500 followers on Twitter.
Crazy, yeah.
That's when I realized that there was like actual potential in it. And it was very exciting. So I just kind of saw that through.
And I am personally curious, do you think you actively went into that kind of group where there was like, they had a huge potential to be like this big figure, or was it something, do you think it was in you that attracted those kind of people?
Well, I think it was the way I view training and the way I wrote about it that brought those people in.
Right.
Like Jeff told me, he's like, because he was already a national champion bodybuilder here in Canada.
Right, okay.
I want you to make me strong and I trust you. Like that's one of the first things he ever said to me. And I said, well, Jeff, like I haven't competed in powerlifting yet. I've done the training myself, but I just wanted to let you know that. And he's like, I trust you. And so for 8 months, Jeff Nippert and I trained for powerlifting. And then he earned a silver medal in the 74 kg class at Canadian Nationals. So,
wow.
Yeah, I was able to earn the trust of people like Jeff. Was also able to earn the trust of people like Mark Martin, who's a Hall of Fame NASCAR driver.
Okay.
I started training him within a year of starting the strength guys as well. And he placed third in that year's Daytona 500. So something about my work which is very trustworthy to people. And I think that was a really important thing.
Sounds like a lot of not only knowledge, but like work ethic and, you know, liability and everything like that. There must have been a lot of things that people thought, you know, really thought they could trust you. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, starting a company is a lot of work. So if you want to do it, you're ready.
Yeah. And also, I want to ask a little bit about the coaching and just your business in general, and just a little bit of a background information on the Japanese powerlifting scene. We also have a very we're witnessing a dramatic increase in the number of competitors in powerlifting. I think that's very similar to the States and everywhere else. But in fact, the increase was so significant that in 2021, the qualifying totals for nationals went up by 100 kilos for all of men's weight class division. So that's how much the sport was growing, and you know the association couldn't handle the many athletes anymore. And with that, you can see increase in powerlifting gyms and competitions, as you know, whether that be official or not official. And with that, under the influence of countries like the US and UK and Canada, you know, more lifters are seeking online coaching. So I think, and personalized programs as well. So I think it's really great that I have you on today. So thank you very much. And I think, you know, with the increase of athletes in the sport comes increase of clients, which is probably good for the coaches and for your business as well. But with that also comes the increase of like competitors, like with, you know, so a lot of coaches, everybody wants to be coaches nowadays. And I know you started your business in 2011, so pretty early on in the game. But has it become like harder for you to reach potential customers, or has it become easier?
There's more competitors, I'd say, to reach the top competitors, like the ones who are going to be champions of today or tomorrow. It's very hard to reach those people.
Right.
But I think there's a certain type of personality and athlete that's driven towards training with TSG. People who value training within a system, who value science and innovation, who value detail in work and organization. I think those are the people who end up training with TSG. Not to say that other coaching companies don't offer that. I just think that we offer that in abundance, like we offer it really well. But there's so many different types of people and personality types in this world, as you know, and I'd say like someone like Joey Flex, he's able to attract top level lifting talent in a very different way than how we do it.
Right.
So it's two completely different ways to the same end result of being competitive.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change our way for anything, you know, because it's true to who I am. And I think that the way Joey coaches from the way I know him is true to the way he is as well. So I think it's kind of a reflection on who we are as people. But yeah, like that draws in who your audience is as well.
Right. I don't know, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I think everybody, like, I know a lot of people that may not like the organized, structured training, but I don't know many people who are against like scientific, like training, like things that are backed up by evidence. Like, do you see a lot of people that are like drifting away from like being like, oh, it's kind of too much evidence and too much research, I'm not going to get into that? Like, do you see a lot of people like that? Because I don't know if I really do.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. I think there's a very common trend in powerlifting. People don't want to face the truth that getting stronger takes progressive overload, increasing work capacity over time. You've got to practice the specific lifts with good technique. Like you can't consistently squat high in training and expect it to go well on meet day. These are truths that make powerlifting training monotonous and somewhat boring at times. So you've got to have a why for why you're doing this if you want to be competitive. But there's this big trend in powerlifting and in fitness to make up grand explanations for why you're doing an exercise or a program, when in reality the reason is because you're bored. Novelty. Yeah. And smooth talkers can make novelty sound really scientific. When in reality, you're just cherry picking and you're ignoring the hard facts. So I think everyone values science, but I think people view it differently. So for us, it's like, it's not only science, but like before COVID, I hadn't lost at a competition I had been to in 3 years. You know, like it's also results. So we're talking like a worlds, a nationals, provincials, a city meet, or regionals, like whatever. So it's also results. Like what we're doing works. And I think that's because we are facing these hard truths that research has shown us.
Right.
As opposed to chasing novelty. Because there's such a thing as, it's Occam's razor, right? Sometimes making changes doesn't lead to progress, it leads to setbacks. Right. And for us, we found something that works really well. Mm-hmm. And if someone wants some excitement in training, we'll talk to them about that. You know, if the reason for training is not to become a champion, but just to be strong and enjoy being strong and taking part in powerlifting culture, we'll modify to that. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be a national or world champion, you've got to do the work, you know. Mm-hmm. And there's no way around that, in my view. So that means sometimes it's going to be really hard. Sometimes you're going to have 2.5-3 hour workouts 4 to 6 times a week. Like, you just got to do it. So that's my thoughts on
diet.
And
facing novelty, meaning like maybe you see, for example, your idol on Instagram lifting a crazy amount of weight and being like, oh, that is so cool. Like, I want to do exactly what he's doing and I want to be, you know, strong like that, and not realizing that almost like ignoring and avoiding the fact that it takes time and effort and a lot of thought that has to be put into the program, more just going into things of it just for the, you know, the idol figure. Is that what you're trying to say? Or
yeah, like, and then exercises that aren't direct, like let's say that improving your competition back squat, like getting stronger at that in training at competition body weight on competition equipment, correlates perfectly with improving your back squat in competition, right? You've now improved performance. So that's a correlation of 1 or 100%. Yeah. Improving your pause squat in training may be a correlation of 90%. It may improve your competition back squat, but it also may not, right? Like,
it's a different movement.
And like improving your band resisted back squat in training or chain back squat in training may be a correlation of 0.6, 0.7. It may improve your competition performance, but it also may not. So I'm like, well, why don't we just do the thing that's going to improve your competition performance? Like, plus, powerlifting is such a unique sport because you can train what you're doing in competition exactly, right? Competition form, squat, bench, that, like, do that. And if you get better at that in training, you're going to get better in competition, like almost surefire.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean with novelty. And then also there's programs out there like, we're going to do everything but back squat, you know, step ups, lunges, split squats, etc. I'm going to throw everything at this problem and hope that it makes my back squat better, where you can just back squat, you know, like there's stuff like that look at it, like, it's not really that logical.
I'm really curious to know, like, where that kind of thought comes from. Do you think it's trying to get some sort of different information out there on the internet because there's so much like saturated information, or do they actually believe that it's going to work and it has worked for them? Maybe.
Well, I think whenever someone does something, they believe it's going to work. Otherwise you wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
But social media, like, this has been one of the problems with our world. We've seen it with COVID too. Literally anyone can commentate on anything, right? So that has been good. It's allowed me to have my business and my living, you know. But it's also been bad. Fake news is one of the great problems in our world today.
The carnivore diet does not fix coronavirus.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of problems with it as well. And in powerlifting, I think there's so many different information sources that you can follow now that it's hard to know what information is the tried, true, effective, like gold standard of what you should be following, and what's just flashy, unproven kind of marketing for people trying to build a name for themselves. So I think that's where it's born from.
Does that frustrate you at all, or do you really not mind that other people are providing information that are possibly incorrect and dangerous? How does that make you feel?
To me, if our competitors want to train that way, that's fine. I look forward to competing against them.
Yeah, it's probably good for you, right? Yeah. Okay, so like, what if, for example, you have a new client and they come up to you and say something that is like I've asked coaches before about this, but unrealistic goals, or like, I want to achieve 100, an increase of 100 kilo total in a month, and something that's like completely not very realistic. What do you say to those people, like those athletes?
Yeah, so I'd say I'd reframe that. And by reframing that, I'd say our training is a process. And this is the reason why it's a process, is because our training is based around progressive overload of volume over time. And the most important advantage of periodized training is that you can systematically progress the amount of training that you're doing over time, right? Over time, I'm talking like the entire development time frame of your career. Like even like Taylor Atwood is still systematically progressing from year to year, right? So, and he's been at it now for 8 years. So, you are starting here, and in month number 1, when someone signs up for training with me, the goal is not right out of the gates to immediately improve your powerlifting total. The goal is to get you lifting the right way, get you training the right way. And on a programming perspective, the goal is to elicit the repeated bout effect. So this is the body's way of defending against muscle soreness.
Right. Okay.
So like, the first time you do a novel or new exercise, you're really sore after that. Well, the second time you do it, you're not as sore. And the third time you do it, you're not sore at all. Same thing with first week of programming when I start someone out. Super easy week of training so that they're not super sore the day after.
Yeah.
And that way we can get them going on a higher frequency of training and actually start to progress without dealing with muscle soreness. Because the thing with muscle soreness is it restricts range of motion at times, and it restricts power output, which isn't good for training adaptations. The second order of business is if you want to train with us, you've got to improve your work capacity. So this is a higher rep phase, so 6 to 10 reps. Usually we'll do, anywhere between 10 reps at the start of the week and 5 to 6 reps at the bottom of the week. So that way you're doing a lot of work. And the next thing that doing a lot of work does for you over time, usually around the 4 to 10 week mark, is you can start to build muscle mass by doing that.
Right.
And when you build muscle mass, building muscle mass is the most modifiable factor in gaining strength over the long term. And the reason why that is, at a very simple level, is you build more contractile units and you're likely to be a stronger athlete, right? That instead of having 100 little tiny men pulling on the rope. You can have 500 little tiny men pulling on the rope, right? Like that's how we get stronger. There's other ways, of course, with improving the skill of strength and intramuscular coordination. But like the importance of gaining muscle mass for powerlifting is here. Intramuscular coordination is here. Intramuscular coordination is here. Like it's a big difference between hypertrophy and coordination.
Right.
And so those are the first 3 goals of really the first 2 months of training, unless we're getting ready for a competition immediately. And then we're getting into the strength work and initial assessment. So right out of the gates, I'm pumping the brakes on the person who's wanting to gain 100 kilos to their total in month 1, saying that's not how periodized training works. Like we've got some things to work on to set you up for long-term success.
Yeah. I think explaining that is very important. And it might seem very like obvious to us, but maybe for people that are like wanting to lift because of some sort of like ego or something, they might not like that boring first few weeks. I want to be Russell. He already, like, and convincing clients like that must be hard. I can imagine.
Like that. So there's a few different trends in powerlifting programming. Certainly working up to a top set and then doing volume afterwards. It's also proven to be effective. I think that system has its drawbacks, just as a critic could say that our system has its drawbacks. I think it's about the time frame that you're looking to experience success from the sport.
Right.
And it's also about who you are as a person, what you need to remain engaged in a sport. Certainly, it's a lot more fun and gratifying to hit PRs every week, make king of the lifts, get a lot of followers on Instagram, make a lot of friends, get caught up in that rush of excitement. But the flip side to that is how many of those people actually hit what they do in training on the platform. Right. It's not a lot.
Yeah. Right.
Whereas with us, you may only hit 92.5% and 95% 1RM in training.
Right. Okay.
Where you compete. There's sometimes there's top sets, right? Depends on the person. We don't rule out that method of coaching. But I'd say 75% of the time there's not. And so you're delaying that gratification for like at least 12 weeks. And then you're experiencing it on the platform when you actually peak and like improve your performance. So different ways of getting to an improved end result. I think our way is more effective, but not more effective for absolutely everyone out there. I think some people, like, you'll never know if Russell Lorhe would benefit more or Jessica Bittner would benefit more from training on our programming compared to what they're currently doing, right? So that's everyone has to make their decision.
That's really hard as a lifter though to know what, because as a beginner lifter, if I was maybe like 3 or 4 years back when I started, I would have no idea what program would benefit me the most. Like that would be what you said would be very hard for a beginner lifter to choose, what program to follow. So do you maybe recommend like doing a lot of trial and error or?
Honestly, like trial and error is good. I think also coach hopping isn't good. But trying different things, maybe for like, I'm going to do a year of this and a year of this.
Right.
I'm going to see what I like. And then I continue with a year of whichever I like. That could be a good way of looking at it. Or just like thinking about like what attracts you to the sport.
Right. Okay.
We want to learn about periodized training, to experience that, to systematically build yourself up over time, then our method of training would be best for you. We want to, experience the more social aspect of powerlifting with getting strong really fast, making a lot of friends in the online community, gaining buzz around your name, and like kind of being promoted as the next big star.
Right.
I think like that top set, like volume approach would be good for you.
Right.
Alternatively, like if you want a really innovative perspective of RPE or velocity-based training, you can look to emerging strategies and the work of Mike Share at Reactive Training Systems. And that may be good for you, right? Like, I think just reflect on what approach attracts you most.
Right. Right. So like the motives of being strong is maybe your core driver to start the sport, but having smaller wants and needs may help you choose what might be suited for you.
Yeah.
Right. And what I'm also curious about is, well, you can all correct me if I'm wrong again, but as you said, you base a lot of your programs off science and, a lot of scientific literature, but I also feel like it's like powerlifting programs are a combination between like experience based, like some sort of anecdotal stuff maybe, and also scientific evidence as well. Like how do you, because I feel like you can't be 100% scientific. You got to have some sort of trial and error with the clients and see what works and things like that. How did you develop powerlifting programs like when it wasn't even a thing when you started? Was there a lot of trial and error, and how did you come up with this like sweet spot between the two? Like, is that, I don't know if that's a difficult question or not, but
Yeah. It's a lot of trial and error. And for me, it was a lot of mentoring too. Like I've had mentors in strength and conditioning too, but like strength and conditioning is so different from powerlifting that like it only complements powerlifting. It's not, you don't learn to write powerlifting programs from a strength and conditioning coach.
right.
You learn to write powerlifting programs from excellent powerlifting coaches. So I'd say my main mentor in the sport was Ben Esbro.
Okay.
I also know him. He owns the supplement company Elemental Formulations with Omar Issa, formerly known as De Novo Nutrition. And Ben Esbro was a researcher and coach. He coached Lane Norton back in Lane Norton's heyday of powerlifting, as well as L.S. McLean, Ryan Doris, and many other really good lifters, Eli Burks being the best of them. And Ben Esgro and Dr. Mike Sordos kind of took the daily undulating periodization training system in the early 2010s and did the research on it and evolved it. And when Ben Esgro was ready to leave coaching, he kind of just wanted to leave that behind for an individual. And so he chose me and he mentored me. Training system. And so for 2.5 years, Ben Esgro and I coached people together every week. 3 hours, sometimes 4-hour calls. And when we weren't doing those meetings, I was building up the training system around what Ben was doing to support it, complement it. And a lot of those supporting structures that I put in place come from my experience in strength and conditioning with sports science and in professional sports and warming athletes up, managing injuries, hiring staff to help with these things. So nutrition, physical therapy, perhaps sports psychology in the future, supplementation, like things like this. And so through the course of my mentorship with Ben Esbro, we really, elevated the training system that he originally had and made it into something that I was able to show to all of my coaches. They were able to understand it. It's quite simple, even though it's effective. A lot of people wouldn't believe me that when Taylor won Best Lifter of Raw Nationals in 2019, he only trained 3 times per week. His training split was back squat, bench press, deadlift, back squat, bench press, row, back squat, bench press, deadlift. That's all he did.
Wow. Okay.
And he's Best Lifter of Raw Nationals, and he won his 6th straight Raw National title. And that was a very good prep. So when you take a simple training system like this and tell people how to systematically progress it over time, you actually get something that's quite powerful. And that's what we've arrived at.
It sounds like you build a foundation of first like having this with a lot of researchers like scientific based kind of training, and then you trying to actually test that out to your clients for doing mentor and stuff, and then see what works. So you kind of get like the best of both worlds, and then you create like this nice end result of your coaching style. Yeah, maybe that might be right.
And I'd say the other aspects to that are mentorship in game day coaching from Matt Gary of SSPP. Matt is the best in the world at game day coaching. His athletes are going to go 8 or 9 out of 9 almost every single time.
Right.
Matt is the coach of Ray Williams for our Japanese lifters as well. So he's been around the block. And also his wife, Susie Hartwig Gary, who I've had the pleasure of coaching as well. She's an IPF Hall of Famer and a former U.S. national team coach as well, who has been a mentor for me. They know all the rules. They know all the tricks in the rule book. They scout competitors ahead of time, so they know who they're up against. They scout the coaches ahead of time, so they know who the coaches are, who they're up against. Like they're on the money. And receiving mentorship from Matt and Susie really helped to evolve the strategic component of how we coach.
Right.
And also receiving mentorship from Pro Sturgio, biomechanist at the Canadian Sport Institute. He trains with our Canadian Olympians, sorry.
Okay.
And Dr. Megan Bryanton is a biomechanist who did her PhD in back squat biomechanics.
Whoa.
Receiving mentorship from these people really helped me as an analyst, so that when I'm watching videos of clients on a weekly basis, I know what to look for. And if you look at in strength and conditioning, receiving mentorship from Ryan Van Asten of the Calgary Flames National Hockey League team, and Brett Bartholomew, who owns his own private practice, really helped me to understand the training process in first person, like at a ground level. So now, like one of the things I'm looking at when I'm deciding how much volume to do is, when does performance start to drop off? Like, how many sets can you do before your sets start to become bad?
Right.
And that's when the sets start to become bad. If you can tease out like a consistent trend of like, this person is on fire for like the first 4 sets of their training session, but by set 6, it's like, that's when you could say, okay, like 6 sets is about their capacity to do work in an individual workout. So that's probably a reasonable limit. where if I want to add volume again, I'm probably going to have to add another day instead of going 7 or 8 sets. Does that make sense?
So that kind of like varies within like individual athletes.
Yeah.
So you kind of like try to test it out and then see first and try to learn about the clients and stuff.
Yeah. And the other sides to that are like some people respond better to harder training. So like the grinding style of strength where you can grind out reps like an RP8, which is like a hard set. And then you can recover well enough in 36 hours to do it again. Or there's some people who do that and they won't recover well enough for 72 to maybe even like until the Friday of that week. So then you have to look at individualizing their training frequency or their difficulty per set so that they can actually recover and make performance improvements across the program. So these are all the different things that I look at as an analyst, as well as assessing. You look at someone's movement pattern, you're like, this is probably a muscle group that we need to focus on.
Right.
And this is where they're strong. So we don't really need to like put that much attention to it. Or if you're looking at like this past weekend, I had a client say, I'm getting discomfort in my right knee. What is that? And so pain is pretty multifactorial. He's in his finals of school.
Right.
He's currently working at peak volume. So this is the most amount of volume he's ever done, but we built up to it. So I don't think that alone is causes discomfort. And then when I analyze the squat from the rear view, I see that he's shifting more of his weight onto his right side. So he's also putting more force on his right knee and through his right knee to get him back up.
Right.
And so, you'll never know for sure, but it seems pretty logical to me that this combination of stress of working at peak volume and of shifting weight onto the right side that's probably causing that right knee discomfort. So let's try to correct that. Right. These are all the things that, not all of the things, but some of the things that I look at.
And I think that's only possible because you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience from looking at many different perspectives. You've had mentorship from like biomechanists, or like you have knowledge on sports psychology and many different fields. I think that's only possible because you know a lot of different perspectives, and that's why it seems like it comes very natural to you. Like you can analyze people, like your clients, very like easily.
Like I think pursuing mentorship in strength and conditioning and professional sports has really helped me in that regard. And so it's like an indirect way of developing my skills for powerlifting coaching. Like the asymmetry example I just used, it comes from the way the Calgary Flames monitor their professional hockey players' physical performance is they do jumps on force plates. So force plates measure the amount of force that's going into the plate. So when you jump and when you land, it'll measure concentric and eccentric force. You stand on 2 different force plates. So left foot on the left plate, right foot's on the right plate, and you jump and you land. And if there's a discrepancy in the amount of force that you're producing when you take off, so perhaps you use more of your left leg when you take off, you land more on your left leg, the force plates will show that as an asymmetry index. Now, the other side of that is that if I watch someone jump with my own eyes, if they have a big asymmetry, I can see it.
Right.
Or if I watch someone squat, because it's not that different of a movement pattern, you can see it. There's some rotation or there's a shift or something like that. And so we don't have the exact number of newtons telling us how much the force differed in my client's right knee versus his left knee. But I can see that there's a difference, and that's enough to act on.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how my mentorship in pro sports has helped me with coaching.
Yeah, like you look at something and feel like something is off. That's only possible because you've seen so many athletes and clients. And I'm very curious to know, like, I know this might not be helping your business, but for people that might want to get into coaching, do you think that could be like a tip that you'd give them to try to experience different fields, not only, you know, strength training, but also, you know, pro sports, analytics, physical therapy, psychology, and all different types of things? Like, is that an advice that you could give them maybe?
Yeah. So whenever, and I've stopped pursuing a job in professional sports. But when I was pursuing it, you can apply as a sports scientist or a strength and conditioning coach. Being a good coach or like a scientific mind isn't enough for professional teams now. Like you need to know how to code in R as an example. And if you're a sports scientist, you need to know how to coach, and then you need to be best of the best at sports science, right? Like it's not an exclusive skill set anymore. You've got to be versatile.
Right. Yeah.
For people looking to get into powerlifting coaching, I would recommend owning your bases first. So start with powerlifting. Like come up with something good in powerlifting. Try to intern under a really good coach and just learn from them. Once you've done that and you have something good in powerlifting that's working, analyze what problems your training system has, or your video analysis or whatever, and then seek out the educational experiences to respond to those problems. So for example, like I think I have pretty low and controlled injury rates, but they do happen. And I'd like to be able to respond better to them on my own. I may go back and become a physical therapist just to become a better coach, right? Like that's one of the things that like I'm looking into developing in the next few years. So, or I may pursue a master's in exercise physiology and really focus on velocity-based training because I think that's a future direction. Or I may look into more artificial intelligence coding because I think that's another future direction. Like these are like kind of like the three areas where I see like I need to get better, otherwise someone is going to take my job and pass me, you know?
Right. So having your sort of like specialty and then trying to dig deep into that, like trying to get more knowledge into that and then maybe expand from there. But first own your base first as a powerlifting coach and what you can, you know, there are many different fields to how you can approach powerlifting too, you know, yeah.
Absolutely.
So that could be a really good tip. Also, what I think, since there are not many coaches yet in Japan, I think there comes a question of like, why do I need a coach when I could just study, you know, everything that you said, you know, like what would make coaching, online coaching or just coaching in general, like what makes it so special? Like, why do you need a coach? Like, if you have the knowledge, do you still need a coach?
I coach lots of coaches too. I think coaches can always get better as well. But like, I think one of the main reasons why people hire a coach is, especially like someone who really like wants to be competitive, is they hire a coach who they think could solve their problem for them. So let's say like you're second over and over again. You can't beat person in first. You want to hire a coach who can get you over the hump, get you to first place. So you're looking for a specific expert who can solve your problem. And I think that's why people hire me. They think I can solve whatever problem they have. But I'd say like, if you want to coach yourself, that's another side of the sport that's really fun. Is it's like, it's very physical and it's very challenging on your personality. Because you're gonna have to train when stuff is sore, when you're tired. Like it's you're gonna have to delay gratification until meet day, which only happens sometimes once a year for people, or during COVID years, nothing. But the other side of it is that it's strategy that gets you there. It's how you approach training that like complements that process, and you can't do it without like, you need your process, and you need sound training and nutrition, supplement. You need that to be the best. And so if that's a challenge that excites people, of taking on both the training and the process, then like I say, go for it. I think that's amazing, right? I think a lot of people aren't interested in doing all of the work that I've done as a coach, for example, to become really good at what I do, right? So, and I think coaching is for those people as well.
So it really highly depends on the personality, I guess.
Yeah.
And don't you think maybe coaching yourself could get a little bit too objective in a way? Like you need some sort of third opinion, because you could think a certain way, but then some person can look at your lift a certain way and then think it's completely different, you know? Like it could be really in your head. But do you think like people who coach themselves, they do a good job in analyzing their own, lifts, and, they're very self-aware? Like you have to be very self-aware, right?
Yeah. So I coach myself, and I find I experiment new ideas on myself and build them out further before I start integrating them in my client base. I think you can be like education based, experience based, or both, which is like a happy medium. And I think a coach who is solely experience based, if they coach themselves, you can come up with really good ideas, but you could also come up with really bad ideas, not really recognize them, Whereas a coach who's education based, you can have the knowledge, but you can miss out on a lot of the areas where experience would help you. I think so. Training yourself can be both good and bad.
Very tricky though. Yeah.
It depends on how you frame it as a coach, right? And like what all you're looking to take out of it. So it's I don't know.
And I feel like you have to be really confident at what you do too. Yeah, because if I coach myself, I definitely wouldn't be confident of, am I supposed to be doing this? So I guess, I don't know. They have to be pretty confident with what they're doing, I guess, as well. And also, there was a question that I took from the audience. I put it out on Twitter that I was going to interview you, and then there was one really nice question that I'm personally curious to as well. And I'm sure you have a lot of clients from like many different countries and with, different body proportion, with different leverages and stuff like that. And the listener wanted to ask, if you're able to identify the limit of your strength based on like biological and environmental factors, like differences such as genetics and race and training environment. Like, are you able to subjectively identify that?
The limit.
Yeah, the limit of
Okay, so
this person would only get this strong based on the proportion that they have.
Right. I coach the best lifter in powerlifting, Taylor Atwood. He's nowhere near his genetic ceiling for how strong he can get. Now, he may be near his ceiling of how much training his body can tolerate, meaning like the joints and tendons and ligaments and his spine, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
He may be close to the limit of how much his lifestyle can tolerate, school, work, soon to be father. Can he still do 2.5 to 3.5 hour long workouts 3 to 4 times per week after work, after school? I don't know. We'll find out. But I think Taylor's going to be a lot better at this year's Raw Nationals than he was when he totaled 812 kilos at Florida State Championships in October. So I don't think he's near his ceiling yet. And the thing is, like, if he ever was near his ceiling in 74 kilos, we could just go up to 83 kilos.
Right.
But there's always breakthroughs that you can make to like make someone better. The question for me is, can the person withstand them? And do they have the time in their day or week to do it? So I think those are the two limitations. Or like, one is structural and one is lifestyle.
Right. Do you think there is a ceiling? It exists.
At a certain weight, I think you can get to very diminished rates of progress. But then if you gain more muscle mass and more weight, you could make more progress, right? So not really. Yeah, not really.
And if you saw a lifter and you thought, or maybe, Taylor Atwood at 74, you thought, okay, maybe this is the limit. Like maybe, I don't know, like a few years later or however long later, would you tell him that? And be like,
definitely. Hey. So I wouldn't say like this is as good as it's going to get. I would say this is as good as it's going to get in this weight class. Like you need to eat and build muscle. And because the amount of training that it requires for you to add 5 to 10 kilos per year to your total in this weight class is completely unnecessary, right? Like I've had to say this a few times to people. I'm like a 5'10", 74 kilo lifter, that doesn't make sense to me. Like you need to grow, because people who are 5'10" and competitive are at least 105 kilo competitors.
Right. Okay.
Like you have your rare 83 kilo or 93 kilo competitor who's that tall, right? Like it's just observational, like looking at people at a world championship, for example.
Yeah.
So like that'd be a situation where it's like, well, right now it takes you 45,000 pounds of squat volume in a week to see a very slight improvement in your estimated 1RM. Whereas if you were doing 20,000 pounds of squat volume and gaining weight, you could see a far bigger improvement in your 1RM. So I would ask, like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the point in subjecting yourself to this risk and this loss of your time and this pain for such little gain when you could experience more by going up a weight class, and it would be fun, That's what I've had that conversation with many people.
And the purpose of But I guess it kind of could depend on the purpose of why you're staying in that weight class. And, you know, their purpose could be wanting to keep getting stronger, or their purpose could be wanting to beat that one person in your weight class, you know? It could,
if you're at the top, it makes sense, right? I know like weight cutting is something that's like really exciting to people. Kedrick Kwan of our group is actually doing his PhD on powerlifting weight cuts.
Wow, okay.
2-hour weight cuts. So he is, as far as I'm concerned, he is the expert to go to in that sector. Ever since he started working with Taylor, Taylor has been able to get heavier and heavier in the off season while making weight without stress on his body. But it doesn't affect his performance in a negative way. It's actually allowed him to like hit another inflection point of going from totaling 790 kilos to 812 kilos. And I think at this year's nationals it'll be even higher, right? Like weight cutting at that level is helpful. Weight cutting when you're a junior who you haven't filled out your frame.
Yeah.
Don't do that, you know, or weight cutting to place 10th. Like that's stupid. Like you should be focusing on building yourself up and having fun with the sport, because it may be a decade before you're competing for podium. And don't try to stay a 74 kilo lifter if your long-term future is going to be heavier, because you're already having to cut a ton of weight to get to 7. Like cut weight when you're competing for podium, basically.
Right. It's all up to the purpose of when you're lifting. And but like going back to like the whole you know, your limits, and I think a lot of people who have maybe like biomechanical disadvantage, you know, my arms are too long for the bench press, that's why I can't bench, you know, I can't do this because my gym they don't allow chalk, and that's why I'm weak, you know, like there's always some sort of excuse for a lot of people, you know. But from your point of view, it's always, you know, there might be you know, disadvantages with your body proportion, whatever, but it's never like impossible to overcome it. And if it does like reach your ceiling, then you just, you know, there's always a way around it.
Yeah, like find a way. That's what powerlifting is about. If you have really long arms and you're not naturally a good bench presser, I'm not saying you're going to be an elite bench presser, but you could take your 100 kilo bench press and you could make it a 150 kilo bench press if you work hard enough for long enough. You know, I believe that. I'll say that, like, and at the same token, like using your example, if you have really long arms, you may be bad at bench press, but you may be great at deadlift. So make it up in the deadlift, right? Like you can't change your leverages, so there's no use in complaining about them, right? Like just get on with the show, you know, like train consistently and find a way to make yourself better.
Yeah, that's true. It's taking advantage of what you have and making the best out of it. I think that's a very smart way of doing things. And I'm also very curious, like there must be a lot of like clients that you have worked with, but I am curious to know, like, what is there some specific like traits about Taylor Atwood, like personality wise, that make him such a great athlete?
Well, I mean, in professional football, the average size of a running back, it's got to be like at least 6'3", like, sorry, I'm speaking in American terms on a Japanese podcast.
Yeah, but I can,
like 220, 230 pounds. Taylor was a good enough running back at 5'6", 180 pounds that he made it to professional football. So Taylor's athleticism is off the charts. Like he is a undersized professional athlete, right? And so the other thing that being undersized gives Taylor is that he's so compact and he's equivalently strong, if not stronger than every guy in the NFL right now. But he's a 74 kilo lifter, right? So you take that, that's a lot of potential right there. Now, the other things that make Taylor special are, I'll use the example of like 2 weeks ago, he had a grade 1 quadricep strain. He recovered in 5 days. Like the recovery time frame for a grade 1 strain, 2 to 4 weeks. Like Taylor responds to training differently from everyone else. Like you give him 3 weeks of consistent training and he'll look like he's ready to beat anyone in the world again. You know, like he's different in that regard. And then in competition, he's so focused and consistent and skilled at powerlifting that he rarely ever makes mistakes. And that's because we've had a lot of learning experiences along the way too. Like Taylor bombed on squat depth at the Arnold. He should be a 3-time world champion because in 2016, he pulled the winning deadlift, but he forgot to extend his knees. So it didn't count and he placed second.
Right.
And even like when he told 812 kilos, we got a gift because he actually dropped the bar. He like threw the bar down and celebrated.
Right.
Thankfully, no one. So like after that meet, I'm like, Taylor, you got to tone it down and make sure that you're doing things the right way, right? Like you can't let that cost us a world or national championship. So learning experiences as well. But yeah, I'd say it's mental approach. It's how physically gifted he is. Maybe it's also part of his Japanese heritage that makes him so good. He does actually have some Japanese heritage.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. Well, there you go.
You'll have to sign him up for the Japanese national team sometime.
Seems a bit part Japanese. Well, a lot of like, I mean, the genetic side of him may seem like, I mean, not everybody can mimic that, but I guess like the focus side, being, you know, consistent with how he's performing in training and competition, you know, is something that we could all maybe learn from. You know, that's very exciting for us. Yeah.
That's Taylor and his dad. His dad is a very important figure in his life. If you've ever seen Taylor lift, his dad is the gigantic man with the rolled up shirt and Harley Davidson tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
Like his dad is his corner man, and his dad, Taylor and his dad talk like every day about training and how Taylor can maximize his potential in the sport. And then on competition day, his dad makes sure that Taylor's in a winning mindset every time.
Right.
And that really helps as well. It's having that, like, Taylor's dad doesn't have a degree in sports psychology, but he has an education in the street on sports psychology. You know, street sense. Life experience. And it's like the school of hard knocks, and he passes that on to Taylor. And that really, it transforms. Like it's a really powerful thing.
And the fact that he has such a great like support system, like you just mentioned, his dad, you know, is his coaches and a lot of people that supports him, that must be also very encouraging for him as well, sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, you don't start that way, right? Like he now has the go-to guy in weight cutting, and he has TSG as a team helping with his coaching, and you know, his dad has been there since day one, but that's SBD sponsors him, like all these perks, but like you don't start that way, right? Like that's all earned, and that's what you have as a result of being the best.
And we don't hear about how he started. We only see the it's not the end, but the result of it all. And I guess we kind of forget. It's like I can't even imagine. And like how he started. Yeah.
What else, right? Like it's earned. Like you've got to put your work in. So.
Oh, there we have it. Okay, so what's next for the strength guys? Like, what do you see yourself and the whole business in maybe, I don't know, like 5 years time?
Yeah. Well, I was ever since 2016 Worlds, I was at a crossroads in my career where I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to work in professional sports or not. I've had opportunities with numerous organizations in the NBA, in the MLB, and in the NHL. And I'm just now finishing up a season-long internship with the Calgary Flames NHL team. Wow. It's my hometown team. It's been a dream to work with them, and a pleasure to work with Ryan Van Asten and Alan Selby and learn from them. But I also came to the realization that coaching powerlifting is what I love most. So I'm no longer pursuing professional sports.
That must have been a hard decision for you, right?
It took some time. And so now that that's clear for me, it's full speed ahead with everything TSG. I finished school last year, so may go back to school, but this is my job, it's my career, and it's go time for us. So in the next 5 years, I want us as a company to grow exponentially, to get, if we're here, I want to level up many times. I want to continue to be the best of the best at what we do. A lot's going to change, right? Like a lot of learning, a lot of skill development, hopefully a lot more wins. But yeah, 5 years from now, I still want to be at the top of the game.
And we'll hopefully see your name a lot in maybe the Japanese powerlifting community too. It could be very exciting.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, so where can we reach you, or do you have like a company Instagram page, or tell me the link? And
our Instagram page is at The Strength Guys. That's where we post the majority of our content. We're also on Facebook at The Strength Guys. And then if you want to visit our website, www.thestrengthguys.com. And if you want to contact me directly, Jason at thestrengthguys.com is my email address.
Okay, I will be linking all of that in the description. Wow, that was a lot for an episode. Thank you so much for making the time to come onto the show, Jason.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.